Hey, hello everybody. Welcome world of Facebook and YouTube if you're checking this out later on. This is number 11 and that's a police car or an ambulance going behind my house. This week I'm going to play a tune on this guitar, my second Rob Elwood Salmins style Django guitar. It's beautiful for all that kind of stuff, and loads more besides. It's super versatile. So I'm going to play a piece just to kick us off, just for me to warm up and break the ice, as it were. And then we're going to get into this week's topics. I hope everyone's well. Hope everyone's doing okay, and that you're finding these videos useful. That you're still finding them. That there's something in there for you to hopefully inspire your practice. Or just to give you ideas, really. All this is about sharing ideas. And with that in mind, please leave comments if you can. It really helps. Maybe even if you feel inclined to do so, if you can share these videos, that's really great. I'm just trying to spread the word, really. These are good for me. They're good in terms of, as I've mentioned many times, they're good for my focus in terms of things to practice and so on. And it's just an avenue to try things out, and it means that I have to get certain things together. Like I have to practice particular pieces, I have to be on top of ideas so that I can deliver them to a standard that I'm happy with and that I'm also hopeful that you find helpful. So anyway, I'm going to play this tune for you and then we'll get on to the topics of the week. This is a waltz in 5/4, which is quite unusual, but maybe I'll break it down a little bit at the end and I'll explain a little bit what's going on. But so this is a tune called Friday's Tune. It's the opening track from my last album. Okay, a few rough moments there, but I think hopefully the general idea was together. So I hope you like that. That's a song called Friday's Tune. It's the first song off the last album, Ensemble Future, and as I'm sure you picked up, it's in 5/4. So it's kind of like a jazz waltz mixed in with a little bit of kind of a Eastern European folk type melody, sort of in the gypsy tradition, but not specifically gypsy jazz. But I think the treatment of it, hopefully, I think it works. I hope it works anyway. So, any questions about anything that I've played or anything that I've put together in these compositions, please feel free to just shout out, and I'll address it over the coming weeks. So the basic rhythm of this tune, it's based on like the 3 and a 2, 5. So you've got the 3 section. 1, 2, and 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2, and. So that would be in 3, and then answered by a 2. Like so. And the melody line is based around the arpeggios, but with a lot of chromaticism, so a little bit slower. You got. Kind of arpeggios connected together with chromaticism, which is something that you'll hear a lot of in gypsy jazz. You hear Django doing that a lot, so Django over a minor 6 chord. I got. So decorating those core arpeggio tones with the semitones that are found in between them. So again, you know, any of these things are potential topics. If you so choose, we can look at them over coming weeks. So just drop me a line and I'll look at any aspect that you are interested in. Okay, so on to the new stuff today. I want to look at 3 main topics. They're all going to kind of overlap, as is often the case with these videos. You know, we tend to go off, or I tend to go off on tangents. But I'm hoping it's interesting nonetheless. So what I'm going to say about this week is I'm going to try and cover some stuff that's quite straightforward. I'm going to look at modes and a way of seeing modes for more kind of beginners, entry-level players that are just getting into this kind of stuff. But even if this is something that you're familiar with, please stick with me. I mean, you can always, if you're watching this on YouTube, fast forward 20 minutes or so and get to the more sort of involved things. But I'm hoping that there might be something like a kind of. I find when sometimes I look at players that I like talking about things that I think I know everything, or I think I know most things about, they often will shed light on a subject in a different area, in a different place, which will allow me to actually know the topic from more angles, from more perspectives, which ultimately means I'll know it better. You know, so. Even if you think this is something you've got down, it might be an idea to stick with me, because there may be something in what I'm about to explain that, for one reason or another, you maybe not seen, or you see it in a different way, and it's good to have 2 perspectives. I don't by any means, by the way, claim that the way that I see things to be like the way, like this is the only way. It's just one perspective in many, and in fact, the nature of doing these things over a number of weeks means that if we come back to the same subject in 3 weeks' time, I might have a completely different strategy for you, a completely different way of seeing the same problem or the same concept or the same idea. And this is where, hopefully, this is what being creative is often about, is it not? Being creative is about there being a number of options out there, and it's about how you select those options and how you put them together. And if you only have one way, then that's not really being creative. That's just a response. If you just do one thing, anytime you play an A-7, you do the same thing. That's not being creative. That's just when you see this, do that. Right? Where you'd be creative is if you've got options. You go, when you see A-7, you could do this or this or this or this, and then you combine it in different ways. Sometimes in the moment, spontaneously, which is where we get into things like improvisation, and the value of improvisation in music. But anyway, if we can at least agree on the fact that having options and having different ways of seeing stuff is a useful thing, then we're in a good place to begin, I would say. So, the first thing I'm going to look at is a basic study of modes. This is going to be technically the most easy thing you've ever done in your life, because you're only going to use the index finger and you're only going to play on 2 different strings. So it's not going to get much easier than that from a technical perspective. It may challenge your hearing though, and it may you may hear them in a way that you've not experienced them before, where some people just hear the modes as the major scale from a different place and they all feel and sound the same. This way you're going to hear them as distinctly different things. Okay. Then I'm going to talk a little bit, I had a great question, Anthony Tony said, he always sends really, really erudite and really sort of to the point questions that hopefully I can get really stuck into. And he was talking about using technology. So I'm going to just show you a couple of really simple ways how you can use like a smartphone or a iPad or whatever they're called, we call tablet. How you can use a tablet to help with your practice and just to give you some ideas for like things that you can do when you're playing. I use one all the time, usually an iPhone, small iPhone, really old thing. But I'm going to do it on a big iPad this week, just so that you can hopefully, I can show you what I'm doing and you can see what I'm doing. And then that's going to tie in where I'm going to use those devices to create 7, well I've already pre-created 7 short little backing things that we're going to use to look at superimposing pentatonics against melodic minor harmony. And that's going to be kind of like the more advanced thing, I guess you'd say. So we're going to start with the modes. Then we're going to look a little bit at Tony's question about using technology. And then we're going to look at Wayne's question, one of many, which I'll look at the various facets of that over the next few weeks. And one of his points he wanted to look at was shedding some light on pentatonic options from within the melodic minor scale. So let's put them in order. So we're going to start with the modes. Right? Okay. So at some stage, as a musician, there are certain things that you're going to learn, like kind of memory aids. At some point, most of us have learned, every good boy deserves favour, or all green buses drive fast, or whatever, for memorising the notes on the stave, or face for the spaces, or all cows eat grass, or whatever they are. We've all learned these little memory tricks, and one of the things that you probably had bombarded into your skull at some point if you study music theory is the step pattern of a major scale. The tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. That's what a major scale is. That's the distance between the notes. Okay, and that's a really, really important pattern. So there's a reason why we really kind of overstate that so that it becomes something that you just know, because it's really, really useful. So the distance between the notes, how far away they are, has an impact upon the value of those notes, like whether they sound major or minor, whether they sound perfect or raised or lowered, augmented or diminished, whether it sounds like a major 7 sound, whether it sounds like a minor 7, whether it's got a dissonant second, whether it's got a consonant 6th, whatever it might be. That's all to do with the distances between the notes. So this idea of tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone is significant because it spells out the major scale. So we do this in E. We play the low E, and we play the high E. And then just the index finger along the high E string, I'm going to trace that pattern of tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. So if I go tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone. The major scale, yeah? Okay, clear. Okay, now what we can do, by playing that pattern of tones and semitones, which equals 12 in total, the 12 semitones, by displacing that pattern and putting the emphasis at different points so that it doesn't maybe start on that first step, it starts someplace else, we can end up with different patterns. That's the principle. So the deal with modes is, we're looking at a pattern that's not symmetrical. Like if the pattern just went tone, 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 then by looking at it from a different perspective and starting it from a different point, creates the same patterns of tones, well in this case, but there's no semitones. So rather like looking at a sphere, perfect sphere from every angle, it just looks like a sphere. Whereas if you look at something that's not a sphere, say I take this shape, and I look at it from that angle, that's different to this angle, it looks completely different, or this, any one of those faces gives you a different perspective, a different view, if you like. Rather like, you sometimes see like an aerial view of your own house, you may not recognise it, even though you live there, because you don't generally look at it from above downwards, but you're used to seeing it from a certain viewpoint. Okay, so what I've done here is I've generated a little diagram. I'm going to find a way to get this into shot. Okay, so what I suggest you do, if you're looking at this on YouTube, you can find a way of screen saving this. I'm going to move in a little so you might be able to see this pattern. So this is as good as a circle as I can write. Okay, with tones and semitones going around the circle. So starting with 1, then you move a tone, then from 2 you move a tone, then from 3 you move a semitone, and then 3 tones, and then a semitone. Making sense? Okay. Now next to these things, let me see if I can get this into shot. Next to each of those tone and semitone steps, you can see that. And that's super high technology this is, isn't it? Unbelievable. Right, you'll see that I've placed 3 chords. It's either a major chord or major 7. It could be a minor chord, minor 7. It could be a dominant 7th, but that's still a major triad. Dominant 7th is a major triad. It's what we do with the 7th that makes it the dominant 7th. Or it could be a diminished triad or a minor 7 flat 5 when we add the 7, or something we call a half diminished. That's another name for that same chord. And that's all you get in major. There's 3 triads. It's either major, minor, or diminished, or 4 7th type of chords. It's major 7, minor 7, dominant 7, or minor 7 flat 5, what we call a half diminished. And they each align to those 7 spots. So the 7 spots of, there's a note, then the next note is a tone away, and then the next one, see if you can see the guitar, is a tone away, then a semitone, and then a tone, and then a tone, and then a tone, and then a semitone. In the way that we can align the notes like so, we can align chords like so, like this. A major chord off the first note, a minor chord off the second note. I'll keep the E underneath all. A minor off the third note, and it's a tone higher. Then we go semitone higher and play major. And a tone higher and you play major. Then a tone higher and you play minor. Making sense? Tone higher, you play diminished. So this not only is it the scale, it's also the associated chord scale. Okay, that's the major scale. And they're the chords that go with it. So E major, F sharp minor, G sharp minor, A major, B major, so on, C sharp minor, D sharp, diminished triad, E major. You might think, why have I chosen the key of E when historically everyone chooses C? It's so that I can do this rather than to use it back in the inscription. Okay, so I'm going to keep the guitar in this rather bizarre position, just so that you can still see this diagram, so that's on shot. I hope this makes sense. Okay, so if I now move to, I'm not even going to worry about the names of these things for now. So that's the major scale seen from the perspective of 1, right? And that's got a name, and you can look that up, right? This information's everywhere. That's your homework, is figure out what that's called in the modal world. It's the major scale, but it's something else. Okay. So if I go from the 2nd degree now, but what I'm going to do is I'm not going to play from the 2nd degree of E. I'm going to make the number 2 on this diagram. That's going to be E. So I'm actually going to go around the cycle or the circle from this point, following the tones and semitones. From this point, not this point, from the 2nd degree. So that gives us this step pattern. Tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, tone. A completely different sound, yeah? Affair, yeah? So that's come from the major scale, but it sounds completely different. It sounds like Celtic or that sound like the major scale to anyone? To me that sounds like a completely different thing. It comes from the major scale, sure. Doesn't sound like it, but it sounds like something else. So you've got to learn this as a different sound and a scale in its own right. And that's got a name as well, the scale that comes from the second degree, and you can figure out what that's called for next week. Okay, this also ties into that thing we mentioned a couple of weeks ago about being able to hear that. Can I go? And hear the sound of those notes. So I know that scale, which we know the name of, you know, you can look that up, it has. Okay, what are the chords that go with it? Just associate the chords with the pattern. They stay the same. Minor, a tone higher, minor, semitone higher, major, tone higher, major, tone higher, minor, tone higher, diminished, semitone higher, major. They go together. Those things are associated. I'm sorry if you can't see the guitar, but I'm trying to find a really super low-tech way of keeping the diagram in shot. I'll move it out the way in a moment. So I'm hoping this makes sense. And we're not going to go through all 7 of them now because that's your job. Yeah, that's going to be your job. But what I will do, I'm going to compare 2 like against like. So we had this one, which we called the major scale, or something else. You've got to tell me what that is, and these are the chords. They go together. Of course, now you might want to work on some other fingerings, so that instead of just playing it along one string, you can play it as a group, you know, where you can reach them going across the strings. Again, that's your work, but to begin with, you've got to be able to hear this, you know. So now we're going to compare this to a scale that you find coming from the 4th degree. So go to our diagram, okay. Go to the 4th, which upside down is here. And now we're going to go all the way around, creating a 7-note scale based on our initial pattern of tones and semitones, but displaced so that it begins at number 4 and goes all the way back around to number 4. So our scale now is going to go tone, 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 different, yeah? Semitone, tone, tone, semitone. So how does that sound? Forgive me with this diagram. So it sounds like this. Ooh, oof. Tone, tone, tone. Difference, yeah. Semitone, tone, tone, semitone. So this bit's the same, but this bit's different. Instant Steve Vai, you know. So because the initial one, the major scale, went to an A natural, and our new scale goes to an A sharp, that's said to be a raised 4th. So this particular scale is 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, but not a regular 4, it's a raised 4. So it's root, 2nd, 3rd, sharp 4, raised 11 it's sometimes called as well, it's the same thing, 5, 6, 7, octave. Okay, now let's do the same thing with the chords. Major, what comes next? Major, see? Follow the chords around the same as you follow the notes. Major, major, minor, diminished, major, minor, minor. That's making sense. So, your tasks, right? If this is something that's new to you, okay, I can move this out of the way so hopefully you can see the guitar. So, I maybe will regret saying this, but if you want me to scan that, maybe I'll do that actually. I might stick it up on Facebook. I'll just take a picture of it and put it up as a separate post rather than emailing it to everyone, which could be, I could regret saying that because I might be emailing people for the rest of next week. So I'm hoping that the diagram makes sense so that you can clearly hear that when we start that pattern from a different point, it actually gives us a different sound. And that's the whole point of this. This is what modes is all about. If you just say, play the major scale from a different place, the chances are you're going to hear it like the major scale. And even if you play it from a different place, it doesn't necessarily mean to say that it's functioning in the way that what we just did, where the harmony changes, because it's how it relates to the harmony. So for example, when George Benson, if I play it in the key of E, I know it's not in the key of E, and he goes, and he plays the major scale and he goes, he plays an E major scale, but he goes from the B note to the B note. That doesn't mean that he's playing the fifth mode of E major. It means he's just playing the major scale from the fifth degree. It's only the fifth mode if the harmony shifts and we hear all the harmony from the fifth, like the chord changes, and instead of playing E major against an E, he's playing it against a B7 or something like that, and you hear everything differently, because when you play E against E, it sounds very different. Than when you do that. That's E major against a B7. Here it sounds completely different. So even though it's the same note, sounds radically different when you change the perspective of where the harmony is in relation to the notes. So the only real way to hear the difference between the modes is to line them all up from the same note, really, to be fair. So that you can hear what an E major scale or E first mode, you're going to figure out what that's called, sounds, as opposed to an E second mode, meaning when you go around the circle from the second point, the second degree, and it's a minor sound. Why? Because what chord do you get from the second degree? A minor chord. Another one of those things worthwhile memorizing, rather like tone, tone, semitone, tone, 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 semitone, is also memorizing major, minor, minor, major, major or dominant, minor, diminished triad or half diminished. Right? So depending upon whether you think of them as triads or whether you think of them as sevenths, there's sort of different implications as to the value of those chords. So I'm hoping that this might give you something to practice with modes. Now, of course, if you're a more advanced student or player and you know all this stuff with the major scale, then just insert the harmonic minor scale into that grid. And put the step pattern of a harmonic minor, tone, semitone, tone, and so on. You've got a minor third in there between the sixth and the flat seven. Or maybe do it with melodic minor scale, or do it with harmonic major scale. I mean, that's a question for next week, actually. Someone asked me about harmonic major scale. So I was going to look into that, the 7 chords that come from the harmonic major scale, or 8, actually. It's a funny one. Harmonic major is kind of a bit of a strange one, a bit like melodic minor, where you can repurpose some of the sounds because it's got this peculiarity of a flat 4 of one of the modes. It's got a flat and fourth, and the flat and fourth, unfortunately, or fortunately, because we can use this beautifully musically, it might make it a little bit more tricky for us to think about. But once we overcome that obstacle, that's not a problem. Whenever you see a flat and fourth in something, generally speaking, it sounds like a major third. So you can end up with scales that have got 2 thirds, like a minor third and a major third. You've got a similar thing happening in melodic minor scale, the super Locrian or altered scale. It's like a Locrian mode with a flattened fourth. Well, that means everything's flattened, yeah, every single note. And a flattened fourth don't sound like a flattened fourth. It sounds like a major third. And if it doesn't sound like, it is what it sounds like, no matter what any theory person might tell you. They might say, oh, it's a flat 4, yeah, but it sounds like a major third, and the listener's going to perceive it as a major third. So you end up with scales that triadically might actually be minor, but when you actually use them in reality, they end up being major. a topic for another day. We'll deal with that in good time. But so that's our first topic anyway. So our first thing then is about seeing the modes in such a way. Of course, the grid, that particular grid, can be substituted so that the step pattern follows any scale. Of course, it only really makes sense if the scale is asymmetric. Symmetrical scales would include things like the whole tone scale, which is a series of whole tone steps, and all the modes are the same because they're all whole tone steps. Or you could do the diminished scale, which is the whole tone followed by a half step, whole tone, half step, whole tone, half, whole, half. Or the opposite, half, whole, so on. 1 fret, 2 frets, 1 fret, 2 frets, 1 fret, 2 frets, 1 fret, 2 frets. Or then the various augmented scales, which are often seen as semitone and minor third steps, like that kind of thing. So you might go semitone, minor third, semitone, minor third, semitone. Or the opposite, minor third, semitone, minor third, semitone, semitone. And then there's like a double augmented where you have like, and there's various modes of this, so like semitone, semitone, tone, semitone, semitone, tone, semitone, semitone, tone, and various different implications of that. And of course, because they repeat, there's only so many different permutations, because like if you've got a scale that goes tone, semitone, when you hit the next tone, it's the same step pattern. So there's symmetry within asymmetry, if that makes sense. So it's symmetrical in parts, although the actual parts themselves are not symmetrical. So it goes 2-1, 2-1, 2-1, 2-1. I'm sure there's a name for that. I'm not sure what that is. If anyone knows what that is, I'd be interested to know what kind of symmetrical pattern that creates when it's a combination of more than one event, which are not the same. But again, you know, this stuff, it's fascinating when you get involved in it, but you've got to be able to make music out of it. The whole point of this is that you can take a melody and I can put that into that other one. And change the melody. So there's like a mode 4, and I almost give the game away there, a mode 4 version of the can-can, yeah? And you can do it with any scale. There's like harmonic minor or lift. Phrygian dominant version of the can-can or whatever. So what happened there is the melody that I played, all the numbers were the same. I know I made a couple of mistakes, but you get the idea. I'm doing this off the top of my head. So if I studied the melody of the can-can number-wise, it goes 1, 1, 2, 4, 3, 2, 5, 5, 5, 6, 3, 4, 2, 2, 2, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 7, 6, 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. So I just put that into a different scale. You know, so if I wanted to, I could put it into what would it be? Altered or whatever. And you know, you can work on those things, you know, so that's something to practice. Okay, so that's the first thing. And I deliberately kept this so that I wasn't using any technology, it's just me and a guitar. Which is why I'm using the low E string as a kind of as a drone, I guess, so that you hear it, always hear it against that as the root note. So you're making intervallic judgments based upon the note that you play against the tonic. Okay. So the next thing I wanted to talk about, Tony is asking a question about using various things for like backing and what you might use for practice and so on. So I'm going to talk about like three. Well, the first thing is just a recommendation for an app that I really like. There's a great app called Drum Genius, which is super cool. I'm sure there's loads of other things like it. It's got a big scary green face. I don't know if you can see this. As I turn it on, you'll see this big scary green face. No, you probably can't see it, can you? Maybe that's, no, sorry, I can see that reflecting. Check it out anyway. And what it is, it's lots and lots of different grooves. So you can pick a style, say medium swing, and we go medium swing, ride pattern. and that should be playing. I'll turn the volume down. My speaker's gone off because it's not being used. Forgive me. So if I was going to play the blues, playing along with this rather than the metronome is so much nicer, you know. And there's millions of different grooves, all sorts of different tempos. You can pick it based upon genre. There's some great bossa things on there. I get the impression it's been put together by someone who's quite jazz orientated, because most of them are jazz. There are some rock grooves on there. There are some funk things or whatever, but the vast majority of them are jazz type things. And that, for me, is a good part of practice rather than using a metronome sometimes, because I play in a different way. You play with a metronome, that's great for when you want to practice like things that you're looking for precision, but not necessarily expression, you know. Although we can get onto how to practice with a metronome on another day. I've got some hopefully interesting and original ideas to do with that, like getting the metronome to beat at different points, and even getting the metronome to be polyrhythmically, so that you could be playing in 4 and the metronome's clicking in 5 or whatever. Or you're using the metronome less as a kind of a, like it's giving you the time and it's testing if your time is good in comparison to using it like the way that I use Google. Now, I don't have to memorize any facts at all, because if I don't know the answer to something, I just stick it into Google. So consequently, I don't remember things that are trivial anymore. I don't know how anyone can remember trivia when all you have to do is Google it, assuming of course that it's right when you do that. But with that in mind, you know, if you use a metronome to give you time, then when you turn the metronome off, your time can sometimes suffer, and you've got to, there's ways of using a metronome to test your timekeeping rather than for it to dictate your timekeeping. But that might be another topic for a different day. So my first recommendation anyway is Drum Genius. It's absolutely awesome. Yeah. Okay, but now I'm going to talk about like really basic ones, things that you can use like just on a day-to-day basis for your practice. So the one I use most of all is just the recording note feature. First thing that I do with it is anytime I have a good idea, or an idea, you know, debatable whether they're good or not, I make certain that I record it. So I've got, so far from this year, I've got 180 of these things in here. And it could be anything. It could be a part of a tune. It could just be a lick. So let's pick one at random. So on the 18th of July, I figured out some triadic add 2 idea, and it sounds like this. There's a cool triadic idea with the second added B flat. I'm going to go C. So there's a little lick that was going there. And then at that point, I switch to a different chord. So there's B flat, then now C. Switches to C. So it's kind of combining those 2 chords we found in mode 4 before, with the 2 major chords next to one another, E and F sharp. In this case it's in the key B flat and C. And that's just something I've been practicing, stumbled across. I thought that'd be a cool idea. It's not dissimilar to that thing that we looked at a couple of weeks ago, you know. Switches to C. And they're the kind of things that if I didn't document them in that way, I'd forget a lot of them. And then however, you know, when I'm kind of stuck for ideas, I just go back and listen to like the last 20 of them. Some of them, that's like 30 seconds long. And it just reminds me of stuff that is cool. So for argument's sake, I don't know, here's a Stockolo, I don't even remember, I don't know what this is, right? This is a Stockolo Rosenberg minor third blues motif, which I must have liked, and I thought I should remember this. So now I've forgotten what it is, but it'll take me seconds to remember it. It's a really cool Stockolo idea
in over a G blues. Starts on the major 7 and the minor 3rd. He goes.
Yeah, there you go. That. Stockhauer Rosenberg cool lick over a G blues. Now, I would have forgotten that, to be fair. That would be something that I learned at one point and it's disappeared now. So, whereas now it'll take seconds, and then who knows, next time I'm playing a G blues, what might come out? Stockhauer's minor 3rd lick, or some variation of it, you know. So that's my first point, is use the recording feature as a means of documenting your ideas when you're on the fly, you know, because what we do, it's ephemeral, you know, as a musician, it's ephemeral. What we play disappears, so you go into the practice room the next day and you think, what did I do yesterday? And it's gone, you know. Unless you've documented it somehow, and that could be writing it down, which is another thing I do. I notate stuff. I'm old-fashioned, I write it down, or I use Sibelius as a more modern alternative, or I just record things. Like if it's something that will take me seconds to just play, but minutes to write down, sometimes the fact that it takes a few minutes might just put me off doing it, and I think I'll remember it, and then 2 weeks later I realise I haven't remembered it. So the fact that you can just go, oh, here's a cool thing I've just figured out, boom, it's there forever. I've got folders with this stuff in for years gone by, and again, you know, if I'm ever at a loss for anything to practice, I'll just go back and look over the previous, you know, 100 or whatever, until I find something that's cool. Yeah, so that's the first thing. Okay, so whilst that stuff's great, you know, I'm hoping that you want to play certain things. So you can of course use a recording device to record yourself, and this is the traditional way. So say we say a B flat blues. The traditional way is to go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. You do that, and then we go. Next to go 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. And you do that, you see, solo over it. And everyone knows about that, you know, record the rhythm, solo over it, and you know, keep going for hours and whatnot. And that's great, and it's a really, really good thing to do. I would do that in preference to using backing tracks, because you need to learn the rhythm parts. That's the first thing. You need to make certain that you're good with the rhythm. And if you don't enjoy playing over your own rhythm, then why should anyone else like put up with it? You know, like if you play the rhythm in such a way that it makes it pleasurable for you to play over it, it's likely that other people will find it pleasurable, or at least not offensive. You know, if you find a difficulty playing over your own rhythm because it's too busy, or you're not entirely clear where the harmony is, or where the rhythm is, or where the pulse is, then players are going to struggle to play with you. So playing over your own rhythm is a great thing to do. So these other ideas are not in place of that; they're as well as. So the second thing I'm going to do is maybe a slightly more unique thing to do. I'll keep with the blues motif. Okay, so this time I'm going to, well, you see what I'm doing. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So that was playing 4 bars of rhythm, 4 bars of solo. Now the thing that's cool about that is you need to be thinking B flat, B flat, B flat, B flat, whatever, E flat minor, whatever you're going to play, B flat, G7, back in on C minor. Solo solo, 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 bar 3, down, 4, back in, on, E flat, and so on. So what that means is, as you're not doing anything or whatever it is you're doing, you're having to think about the opposing part. So you've actually got to manage both parts at once. You've got to think about the solo, and you've got to think about where you are in the harmony. Sometimes what can happen when we solo, we sort of lose place in the harmony. We don't exactly know where we are in the harmony. Okay, so that's really good. Do that for as long as you can. It's great with a 12 bar because you flip, because you're going to go, what did I start with? I started with the rhythm, I think. You're going to go rhythm for 4, solo for 4, rhythm for 4. That's the first 12. Okay. Then the next 12, over it goes. Solo for 4, rhythm for 4, solo for 4. Of course, you can do this in 8-bar chunks, you can do it in 2-bar chunks, you can do it in 1, whatever you want. Depends upon the construction of the piece that you're playing, and it depends upon the speed and how comfortable you are with doing this, I guess. Okay, so then once you've done that, and you do it for a little while, I've left sufficient time now that I can't remember anything that I played. I will now go 2, 1, 2, 3. Opposite, so flipping it around. Maybe that's a bit loud actually. I'll put that down. I was doing the exact opposite there. So when the rhythm, when I was playing rhythm here, I'm soloing here. When I'm soloing there, I'm playing rhythm there. You can do that. You can also do a variation on that one where nobody plays rhythm. That's kind of an interesting one. Let me give that a go. So we'll play like solo tag. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Sense. And then we do okay, back to the top. Any tune, any groove or whatever, I'm just using the B flat blues. 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. So this is like hopefully like a sort of an intelligent use for a recording device, rather than just put a backing track on and wail away to it, but not even thinking, you know. And I sometimes do that too, and it's fun. But I can often find myself thinking about, you know, I need to do my tax returns or something, or like, you know, I need to do the laundry or whatever, rather than thinking, okay, what's coming next, or where am I in the harmony? Because it's very easy when you kind of like, in a way, you're using a backing track like the way some people use metronomes, where it's like a sort of, or like I said, I use Google, you know, I don't need to remember any facts because Google's got it covered. Likewise, I don't really need to know the chords because the bass player on the backing track knows what the harmony is. So why do I need to know, you know? Like, whereas in this instance, you know, you got to know what you're doing. If you don't know where you are, you're in trouble, you know, you're in deep trouble, or it's just going to fall to pieces. Right? Okay, so now here's the kind of the most sort of flipped one out of all of them. Okay, so see what you make of this. Right, 1, so 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. that's a couple of choruses of the blues, just kind of playing, throwing ideas away. Throwing ideas out there, nothing's sort of prescribed, but there's obviously licks and whatever. But okay, but the idea being is that then I do this. 2, 1, 2, 3. So the concept there is that I'm playing the rhythm to the solo. So I'll pick another tune, you know, I'll do like bossa type thing. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4. Should, in principle, if I played anything that was any good. 2, 1, 2, 3, in the middle there, because I was playing some things that went across the beat. So let me try that one more time. So let's I'll do something that's a little bit sparser melodically. This is going to be a bit tricky. You know, 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Maybe I'll play bass now. I'll play bass to it. A bit tricky now. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. So I'm a lot more sensitive to timekeeping and where I am in the bar and if the lines are going to fit the harmony and so on. So hopefully you can see the validity in that. So that's just a couple of ideas of ways to use recording devices. So what I'm doing, just to recap, the first time around I played just a conventional thing. You record the rhythm, you solo over it, and that's fine. Then I did trading, like trading 4s, you could do it in 2s, whatever you feel like. You can even have two solos happening at the same time, just need the space, that's cool. And then the third one, which is the tricky one, but it's good to do, and I'd suggest that you give it a try, is you record the solo first. So you just record a naked solo, you know, nothing. I mean, if you want initially to start to help with, you could use a metronome with this, you could use a click. And I was far from perfect there, but you can see the idea and how, and I could feel that I had to concentrate a lot more, and I'm having to react a little bit, you know, when things are moving slightly, then I'm having to go with it or what have you. So consequently, that's a lot more, shall we say, purposeful practice, because sometimes practice can be just what I sometimes use the expression punching the bag. You know, like going to the gym and hitting the bag. The bag's not going to hit you back, you know. That's probably, not that I'm an expert in any of these things, but I imagine you're probably concentrating a hell of a lot more when there's somebody standing in front of you who's going to try and knock your block off, you know, than when you're punching in and out. And then an inanimate object that can't hit you back, you know. So likewise, when you play with another musician, they could throw something at you that you're not expecting, you know, and you've got to react to that, you know, and you've got to make that sound cool. Whereas playing to a backing track that's exactly the same every time, it's a different experience. It's a real skill, but it's a different skill, and I think a little bit of you know, all things, you know, having options available. Back to that again, you know, today, the theme for today is keep your options open, I guess. That's what I'm saying. So that's the second thing, is just to give you some tips with using these kind of devices. Everybody's got one, right? You know, who's not got a phone that's got some kind of recording on it? Even if you've got a really old phone, I used to have a BlackBerry with the worst audio in the world, but I found out if you use the video function, the quality of the audio and the video was a lot better than it was when you were actually using it for voice notes, because people just used it for dictating. So, you know, it's an ancient thing, it's years ago, decades ago. But the video was quite good. So, you know, I just stick it face down or whatever, face up, recording nothing, videoing nothing, but it would record me playing and I'd play along to it. You know? And the beauty of this, rather than jamming with other people, is a great thing to do. I do a couple of times a week at the minute, and jamming with different players. You know, jamming with Carl and Mickey from the Manouche Tones, and I'm playing bass. And I'm jamming with Kathy and Andy, and I'm playing bass again, actually. But that's really good to play with other musicians. But the beauty of this is, this doesn't complain if I do like what I just did and say, let's have another go at that. You know, I didn't really like the way I ended there. I can do that again. I can go around as many times as possible. Whereas when you're jamming with other players, sometimes you get one shot at it and then you're on to the next tune. You know? So this is a good thing to do in preparation for the other thing. The thing I've been doing with that trading, by the way, of late, is playing one thing on guitar and then jumping onto bass for the second part, which is really cool. Because you really get to know a tune if you can play all the parts. You know, the only thing I'm sort of can't play is the drums. You know, because the melody's covered and the harmony's covered and the bass is covered. So that's really when you sort of know a piece inside out. So hopefully that is some things you might want to consider working on. So then the final thing for today, I'm going to showcase another app that I use, is a question from Wayne related to the melodic minor scale. And the melodic minor scale, as I'm hoping that you might know, it could be seen as like a major scale with a flattened third, or it could be seen as a Dorian mode with a major 7. If we use it in the same form, ascending and descending, I think Berklee School of Music, maybe coined the expression of the jazz melodic minor scale. And it's the one that goes up and down the same way, as opposed to the one you hear in Verheyen or Beautiful Love or whatever, which goes up one way and comes down another. And there's validity in both, and maybe at some point, if you're interested, I'll look at the pure melodic minor scale, or whatever the other one's called, that you might learn if you go for any lessons with a classical musician. They're probably likely to know that one that goes up with a major 6 and a major 7, comes down with a minor 7 and a flattened 6. And that's all to do with the direction of resolution, how the notes move when they want to go down as opposed to when they want to go up, which is the likelihood of a note going up, a semitone, or going down. So anyway, I don't want to digress too much, but the scale we're talking about, it's either a Dorian mode, and if you followed from earlier, you'll know what that is now. A Dorian mode, which is this one. Palindromic scale actually goes up and down the same way. Tones and semitones are exactly the same, up and down. That's useful. Some musical stuff you can do with that. Or it's a major scale with a flat 3. Oh, sorry, we make it to a melodic minor, you add a major 7. So that now is like a major scale. Like so. But because it's got a minor 3rd, it's a minor scale. And the problem with this is, for a lot of us ex-rock guitar players or whatever, you know, so I'm still, you know, rock guitar player at heart. It's still in there, you know. It's a bit like, you can always tell when a drummer's learned how to play Metallica when they were younger. Even if they consider themselves to be a badass jazz drummer or whatever, at some stage, like Lars Ulrich's going to come out, you know. Likewise, you know, a guitar player, if at some stage you've learned how to play half a teacher, right, it's gonna come out, even in your jazz playing, and every now and again, you know, the turbo button gets engaged, and Eddie Van Halen comes out of one of these things. But anyway, one of the things about being someone coming from a rock perspective, almost everything in the first few years for me was minor pentatonic, this scale, of course. And the problem with melodic minor scale is because it has that major 7 in there, everything else is cool, this is all cool, that's not part of that sound. That's not part of that sound. So we have to find some alternatives to get around the fact that we can't just play minor pentatonic. So that's what this thing's really about. So there's 7 notes in this scale, and there's 7 modes that are associated with it. And what I'm going to do, I'm going to give you a minor pentatonic option for each of the 7 notes. Right. Now, what's going to happen here is, to begin with, I'm just going to play one pentatonic option over the first chord. Then when I move to the second chord that comes from the chord scale, I'm going to play its pentatonic, but I can also play the previous one. So actually, all 7 pentatonics that we're going to end up with here can be played against all 7 events. So these are cumulative, they can all be used at all times. But just so that we can manage this in some way, for each chord I'm going to introduce a new pentatonic scale. But you can play any of them against any of the chords. How's that for a concept? Hope that makes sense. So that's our plan today. And the program that I'm going to use, it's pointless me showing you because the screen's just going to flash, I guess, is I use a thing called Loopy. And what you can do is you set up these circles. At the moment I've got 9 available to me, and I tap in the tempo, and in this case I chose 2 bars, and I've got 2 bars, and I've actually got 7 loops. I'm not using all 9, and each of them is one of the chords from melodic minor scale. So the first chord from melodic minor scale, C minor major 7. I'm aware the speaker may go off in a second, so I'll have to just change the audio. And that's the scale. Okay. So our pentatonic option here is going to be a pentatonic minor scale, but without the 7, because the minor 7 doesn't work. We're going to replace it with a 6. So we get this sound. 6. Likes that one a lot. Even Django, like kind of goes out. It's more like a minor 6 arpeggio, granted, but still, nonetheless, they're related. Okay, so that's a minor 6 pentatonic from the root. And also, just another proviso here with this exercise, I'm going to do everything from an E string root, E form. You can play these things everywhere all over the fretboard, but to save time, I'm just going to show you one shape for each, and then you can transpose them to different areas of the fretboard. Okay? So C minor 6 against C minor major 7. Full sound, yeah? Okay. So now what I'm going to do, I'm going to move on to the next chord in the harmonized C melodic minor scale, and that's a D minor 7. So we go. And I'm moving on to the next loop. So the scale still, it's like a Dorian with a flattened second. That's the sound that you get, and that actually means we can play just straight minor pentatonic. Or we can play minor 6 pentatonic because it's a Dorian scale. Like summertime, you know, 2 minor 6 chords next to one another. So I could play D minor 6 or C. between the two. It's quite dissonant because it's got that flat second in there, but that's what the scale's got, that Dorian flat 2 sound. That's where that, that's the flavour of that sound, you know, it's got that kind of dissonance to it. So, to recap, we've got a -6 off the C, -6 off the D. Okay. We move to the next. Sorry, I've done it again. I've put new strings on before. Okay. So the third sound that you get from C melodic minor is an E flat, major 7, sharp 5. You saw that in Mark's tune last week. In fact, in this key, actually in this key. So, the pentatonic that we get here is like a minor pentatonic in terms of numbers. 1, 3, 4, 5, 7. But the intervals match the scale that goes with this chord. So instead of it being a minor third, it's a major third. Instead of it being a perfect fourth, it's a raised fourth. Instead of it being a perfect fifth, it's a raised fifth. Instead of it being a -7, it's a major 7. So it's everything raised. Okay, so instead of, in fact, I'm not going to play E flat minor pentatonic against this, it'll sound horrible. So we get, the fingering is almost like a kind of elongated version of minor. So you get root, major third, sharp 4, sharp 5, major 7. Also go there. See what I'm doing? So I'm going C -6, D -6, E flat major 7 sharp 5. To the fourth, and this is an F7. Now what we're going to see at this point, the fourth chord is an F7, we're going to see some like duality happening, like, you know, like in minor and major pentatonic share the same notes, but we're going to see this happening in a couple of instances here. If I play an F9 pentatonic, these sounds, sometimes called the dominant pentatonic, clearly fits that chord, yeah? Right, that's exactly the same notes as our initial C -6. So if I go here, here, I'll play the same thing here. It's the same, yeah? I mean, you can kind of play around with different options. You could actually put like, kind of a cool one, where we replace the 5 with the sharp 11. I like that, that's nice, I'm into that, that's cool. But there's something that's cool as well about using the same one, because you can transpose the same lick. So there what I did, because the scale that goes with this chord is Lydian flat 7, Lydian dominant. It's got a sharp 11, so I can go 1, 1, 2, 3, sharp 11, flat 7, and that could be my pentatonic. Mix the two together, like options, yeah? Back to the theme of the day, options. Right, okay, just at this point I want to state, these are not the only ones, right? And these are not by any means the best ones. I've just picked one from every degree. You can pick whichever one you want. Generally speaking, pentatonics tend to follow one of 3 forms. Usually they follow something that goes 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, like major, or they follow something that goes 1, 3, 4, 5, 7, like minor, or like 1, 3, 4, 5, 6, like the dominant. Sorry, like the first two that we did today, like the minor 6 pentatonic, or 1, 2, 3, 5, 7, which is like a ninth arpeggio where everything's squashed into one octave. So all we do is we just change the value of those things. So if you wanted, like, you know, a pentatonic, like a Japanese sound and pentatonic scale, you could play 1, 2, 3, 5, 6, like major pentatonic. But just play that coming from the natural minor scale. You get the same intervals, numbers, but a completely different sound. So that's what I'm talking about here, is keeping the numbers the same. So our E flat one was actually like minor, 1, 3, 4, 5, 7. That's what minor pentatonic is, although it's a minor third, it's a flat 7. In this instance it was 1, major third, raise 4, raise 5, major 7. So you can play twisted versions of Lele. Or, you know, old Thin Lizzy licks or whatever, but it's not going to sound like that because you've changed the value of the notes. Okay, so that there's a kind of a disclaimer, you know, I'm not saying these are the only ones, and you might go, why didn't you use this one instead? Well, go ahead and use it, it's great, it's fine, it's totally fine. Just, the reason why I've picked one is because sometimes giving you like, well, you could do this one, or this one, or this one, or this one. It's not helpful in practicing. Sometimes when practicing, being creative is about being decisive. And going for the purposes of this study, it's this one, right? So, we're on F7. But remember, we can play F7. And we can play E flat major against F7. And we can play D minor 6 against F7. And C minor 6. And you can move a phrase through them all. So remember what I said at the start, all against all. So the fact that I only played C minor against C at the start of this exercise was because that was the only one we'd seen so far. When we saw the second chord, we had 2 options, the third chord 3, and so on. Ultimately, all 7 can be played against all 7. Okay, so we move on to number 5, and that's a G7. And again, we can play G dominant. Play F7. That's one of my favourite chord moves, though. If you do this kind of thing, like you might go. So what I did, that's a G7, and then an F7 over G. It's beautiful, and that's this sound. That's what we're talking about here. We can play E flat major with augmented, and D minor 6, or D minor pentatonic, or C minor 6. But they're all going to work great. Okay, next one, 2 left. Sorry. Next one, A minor 7 flat 5. So we play a minor pentatonic with a flat 5. So you might think, oh, I like that note, the natural second, but maybe we don't get it with the A minor. We will with the G. There you go. So when I play A minor, flat 5, I don't get that beautiful B note. But I do get it when I play the G. And then we play F as well. Or with the raised 4. E flat, major sharp 5. D minor 6. C minor 6. Hope this is making sense. And then we get to the big one, number 7, almost there. Now this is this B7 altered. What you'll find if you look at this as a scale, it's kind of boring to do that just as a scale, but if you look at it as a scale, you might be thinking this should be a minor 7 flat 5, because we go 1, flat 2, flat 3, flat 4, flat 5, or triad down 1, flat 3, flat 5, it's diminished. But this flat 4 kind of pushes the third out the way and makes us perceive this as a major sound, like a dominant sound, with raised or lowered tensions. So a nice pentatonic that you can use for this is, it's just one option, is root, raise 9, major third, raise 5, flat 7. Now in fact that's the same note, you know, before we saw that similarity between F7 and C minor was the same between G7 and D minor. But you'll notice these notes played them a moment ago as E flat, augmented, it's the same. Yeah. Particularly nice one against this chord is the minor pentatonic of the flat 3. Because that gives you flat 9, raise 9, flat 5, raise 5, flat 7, no root. So that's a nice option for you. Again, you know, options, back to the theme of the day, yeah, options. Okay, so now we should have a whole set of 7, yeah? So our altered pentatonic. I'm not particularly concerned with any phrasing here, I'm just playing them, you know, like as a scale. But I can also play minor, this is like Django likes to play minor 6 and semitone above. So as a pentatonic, D minor, 6, E flat major 7, sharp 5, F7, G7, A half diminished, triads there, that's F. Was that like I played before with some like the other thing I discovered on the voice notes, F and G against B. So to recap, I'm just going to run through these very quickly. The chords are C minor major 7, D minor 7, E flat major 7 sharp 5, F7, G7, A minor 7 flat 5, and then some kind of B7 with a raised 5, raised 9, or flat 5, flat 9. Okay. So I recorded each of them, 2 bars long, and I played C minor 6 against the C minor 6, but it could be used against all of them. D minor 6 for, or D minor pentatonic regular, if you want it. E flat major 7 with a raise 4. F9 Or with a raised 4 instead of a 5. Particularly like that one. G7, G9. Okay, you have to be careful about using major pentatonic there because that's got a flat 6, so you can't play major pentatonic there. A half diminished, pentatonic. And then this B altered, which is the same as E flat major 7 sharp 5. Et voila. Okay, we've reached the end once again. Number 11, guys. We've done 11 of this. Man, you've listened to me rambling on for like, probably a good 12 hours. It's unbelievable. Like living in my house. Yeah, come around here and you can hear me do that in real time, 24 hours a day. That's pretty much all I talk about music. As always, you know, I'm thrilled that you've got this far. I'm immensely flattered that you got this far. Please send in any suggestions or questions, as Wayne's done. Wayne's sent me enough suggestions to keep me going for a little while, which is great, and I'll keep coming back to them. I'm hoping if this has been helpful, then please let me know. Like, if any of this stuff, you know, if you find it useful, leave a comment. It really does help. I'm trying to, of course, you know, if we're being completely transparent, you know, I want to generate as much traffic to this as possible. It's really good for me. It's helpful for my profile. It's also healthy for me as a musician to be playing and to be having to kind of keep on top of stuff, you know. It's good to have a focus when you practice and the like. And it's just good, you know. I just think I enjoy it, and hopefully you seem to be enjoying it too. So that's really, really great. So keep the questions coming. Look after yourself. Take care of yourself. Who knows what's happening with lockdown? 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, it seems. Just keep playing the guitar. That's what's going to keep me sane. I'd like to say a couple of thanks at the minute. For the last week or so, I've been playing pretty much exclusively with one of these. Where's the camera? There you go. Kearley Nonis. Amazing picks. These are superb. And if I can keep hold of them, and I tend to sweat quite a bit when I play, and particularly when you're a bit nervous. So they've got like a little grip in them, and they sound really good, and they feel great. And most importantly, I can keep hold of them, which means I can actually play. If you're playing intricate stuff and the pick's moving about, it's not much fun. And these sound great, and they're left-handed. And not, you can buy left-handed picks. If you don't believe me, just look into the gypsy jazz world. The picks have got bevels on them because the pick's quite big, but they're beveled on the side, and it needs to be beveled to be on the other side of the pick. Unless you're a player like Robin Nolan, who plays with the pick kind of reversed, so he picks the other way, as it were. So he uses a lefty pick even though he's right-handed. So yeah, thanks to Kearley for making those picks and sending me a few of those through. They're brilliant. And also Rob Aylward for building this guitar. This is the second of 3. The nylon string I played the other week was one of Rob's, and it's absolutely stunning. I've got 2 of these, steel string, and I've got a nylon string. And this has been the one I've been playing. I'm recording another track for this new album tomorrow, actually a little solo piece, and I'm doing it on this guitar. So consequently, if I know I'm going to record on something, I tend to do most of my practice on it, so that when I'm facing a microphone, I hopefully know a little bit of what I'm about to do. So yeah, I've been playing this guitar, and it's been an absolute pleasure. So yeah, guys, I'll see you same time. Oh, yeah, we'll see you same time next week. I'll be dashing back from a gig. Wow, I wish I had my little fanfare device, because I had to get it to go down, 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 because I've actually got a gig next Sunday, which is a rare treat. But I'm hoping that it's going to be finished in the afternoon. So unless you hear otherwise, it'll be the same time next week. Thanks once again. Yeah, brilliant. Cheers for sticking with me. Send some questions. Please give me a like, and maybe even a share if you can. Alright, take it easy. See you later on. Bye-bye.